Now, more news from English cricket today, and another key appointment as developments continue on a daily basis. It seems Matthew Mott, who made his name as a coach in women's cricket in Australia, will take charge of England's men's white ball team. Meanwhile, England have named their first test match squad of the new era by returning their two most experienced bowlers, as well as selecting two new players in the squad. Fast bowler Matthew Potts and batter Harry Brook. Stuart Broad and James Anderson are back. Our correspondent is Joe Wilson. So what does this test selection tell us about the status of the England team at the moment?
I guess their status is somewhere between development and desperation, Sarah. You can look at it with the two new players, Brook and Potts, who may get a chance in this test match. They've been rewarded for their early season county form. Then there's somebody like Ollie Pope. England talking about unlocking his talent, his mindset. He could come in at number 3 in the batting order. But in terms of the fast bowlers in particular, most of the potential candidates for this test squad are actually injured. But there's Stuart Broad. There's James Anderson. They'll be 36 and 40 respectively this summer. They're fit and they're raring to go. Remember, in the recent past, England have actually rested both of them. Neither of them went on tour to the Caribbean. Before that, there have been times when they've been rotated, maybe their workload managed. Well, the new managing director of England Cricket, Rob Key, he has a different philosophy.
And I'd rather have them, playing as much as possible. If they're the best two, or if they're part of the best bowling attack, I'd rather have them in the side trying to win games of cricket for England than sort of prolonging their careers for a long, long time where they can't impact as much as possible. I think we'll try and make the most of them while we've still got them.
In terms of Rob Key then, what did he have to say about the other news, England's coaching appointments? We know, of course, that Brendan McCullum is in for to take charge of the test team, but now we have the addition of Matthew Mott of Australia in charge of the white ball side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's important, one thing is that these two guys know each other and they get on well, because splitting that role, as England have tried to do in the past, it brings its own tensions potentially and its own difficulties. Now, Matthew Mott's interesting, isn't he, Sarah? Because he's made his name with the Australian women's team, that mighty Australian women's cricket team. I think it is a statement of the growing credibility and status of women's cricket that he can make his name there and then get this job with the England men's team. But the fact is, when you look at the guys who are going to be guiding this England cricket team now, despite England and Wales having 18 first-class counties, 18 professional setups, more than any in the world, the two men in those key positions, there is a New Zealander and an Australian. England have gone overseas. So what does Rob Key himself make of that?
No, I'd love to have been able to appoint two English people in this role. There's no doubt about that, but it wasn't going to be the first criteria for selection. The first one was get the best people you possibly can and people you think can add value and take the teams forward. Two very different teams, as it were, or two very different teams in terms of the experience and where they're at. So it was just, who do we think is the best people to take this forward? And they're the two that we've ended up.
Yeah, interesting to hear from Rob Key there, and before him our correspondent Joe Wilson. So let's take a closer look then at today's new man in the England camp, Matthew Mott. Brittany Carter is a reporter with ABC News in Australia.
He is one of the most laid-back men I've ever met. And, Justin Langer, who we just had coaching the Australian men's team up until February this year, was known for having a very fiery and intense personality, and Matthew Mott is the complete opposite. During all his years in charge of the women's team, I don't think I've ever seen him lose his temper once, whether they won a game, lost a game. I mean, there's been a lot more winning than there's been losing, but yeah, I've never seen him in a bad mood. And he has such a great relationship with the media. He has a reputation for being very honest, and he's always happy to answer your questions and clarify anything that's happening in the camp. He has been criticised in the past for focusing on selecting all-rounders instead of going to a specialist that may be really performing and seem like an obvious choice to fans. And he's also had a bit of a defensive and conservative approach in some of his bowling choices for the Australian women's team. But I think the biggest thing that England fans can expect to see from Matthew Mott is that real collaborative approach with the captain and the leadership group.
You know, that's the thing, is he's coming into an English cricket setup which is going through a period really of a lot of flux, a lot of turmoil. There's an awful lot of fallout. He obviously will be in the white ball game. Brenda McCullum is coming in for Test cricket. Do you think that relationship will work, and how will he find that environment?
I absolutely think it will work between those two coaches in particular, if they're going to have a lot to do with each other, because Baz McCullum has been around Australian cricket a lot. He was one of our favourite Big Bash players here for a long time. And I just think that they both have a very honest, relaxed approach. They've got a similar personality in that sense, and hopefully that will mean that there's collaboration between the two of them across that England men's setup, and it gets results for England in the end.